NHL playoffs predictions. All right, let's get it going. NHL 2025. We have a wide range of topics to discuss, and we're going to do it in a very short amount of time. But before we get going, I just want to say hi. I'm Corey Rennie, the Unemployable Counsellor. We're going to discuss the first round of the playoffs today. My own opinion, my own discussion. I don't use graphics. We're just going to have a very quick conversation, and I'm going to break down each series in round one and who I think is going to win and why. All right. If you haven't already, now for some business, like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe and share, I'd really appreciate. And yeah, small step for you, big step for us. So here we go. All right. We're going to jump right into it now because there's going to be a lot of long videos on here, and I'm just one of probably thousands of many handsome people on here trying to do this. So we're going to start in the West, and we're going to start right at the top. Winnipeg and St. Louis. If you're not cheering for Winnipeg in Canada, then you're probably a dick. Rather not, look, it's not even homegrown pride here. I think Winnipeg has had an amazing season. Hellebuck should probably get the Hart. I mean, that guy is probably the best goaltender. They said he's top 3. Yeah, I think he's top 3. I think he's probably more like top 2. But, yeah, I would go with Winnipeg. But St. Louis has had a hell of a run. They got a good coach, and they really come together. Montgomery's there when he got fired from Boston, which I still don't understand entirely. But I guess they felt they needed a shake-up, and he was the way to go. But look what he's done with St. Louis since he's got there. That's really impressive. But I give them 2 games. I think Winnipeg in 6. 6. Okay, so we got Winnipeg in 6. Next one we got Dallas, and we got Colorado. And I have a list with all of them on it just so I don't forget any teams because I'm getting old. Dallas and Colorado. That's pretty tough. I heard Robinson got hurt. If he's out, that's going to hurt them. But they made that big deal for Nick Alishin from Carolina. Like, that's going to be good for Carolina in about 4 years. But, man, Dallas is stacked. You look at the team they got. But I still think Colorado's going to beat them. I give the edge probably to Ottinger, the goalie for Dallas. But I think if Landesberg is coming back and you got all those factors, if that goes, they could go on a good playoff run. But it's going to be tight. It's not going to be easy. I got Colorado in 7. All right, Colorado in 7. Next is Vegas and Minnesota, or in my mind, it's the who gives a fuck series. Pardon me for those fans of Vegas and Minnesota. I like Minnesota. I like Vegas. This would probably be the last game I would watch, unfortunately, just because I don't see them. I don't know much about them because I live in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. We don't get a lot of those type of games. So while they got some really good players like Kiprashev and, when you look at Eichel in Vegas, right? It's like, I don't give that a thumbs up. I give that one the finger. Okay, I say Vegas in 5. I like Minnesota, but I think they're good enough to win 1. And I think that they're going to build off this. Because I never know if they're rebuilding or they're trying to stay or they're trying to win. Because it always seems like they're kind of stuck in the middle. Nah, that part's kind of weird. So I got Vegas in 5. Oh, I didn't think I was going to do that. Okay, so we got one more. LA and Edmonton. LA had only won 3 cups, but I always think of LA with Wayne Gretzky, where they had the moments to be great and they couldn't get over the cusp and win a cup. Those days are done. LA's won, I think, 2 or 3 since then. And Edmonton Oilers, whether people want to admit it or not, are banged up. And that goaltending is a concern. And LA has quietly put together a very good team, a very solid team, and more importantly, a very deep team. And their goaltending has been pretty solid. Now, Edmonton has Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, right? Almost called him Connor McLeod or the Clan McLeod. But no, Connor McDavid, right? They made some good moves at the deal or at the deadline, right? They got some good deals in. You kind of look at some of the guys they got. Maybe they get Kane back. I have LA in 6. But I could be wrong. I'm not a soothsayer, and I never claimed to be a clairvoyant. I just think that at the end of the day, I think LA could beat them. I think Edmonton's got a weakness there. And that's the Western Conference. But I tell you, I think it's between Winnipeg and I think it's between Colorado. If Colorado beats Dallas, the roads to the Stanley Cup go through Colorado or Winnipeg on the West. Unemployable Counsellor time. You heard it here first. Okay. That's pretty good. About 5 minutes to talk about the West, which is my timeline. I got 5 minutes to talk about the East, and I'm going to go from the top down just to avoid bias and whatever. Toronto, Ottawa. I got to be perfectly honest with you here. There is not a team that just angers me with every fiber of my being than the Toronto Maple Leafs. I get it. It's like the largest market in Canada. You know, I've been around for a long time, over 100 years, whatever. But I grew up in the time when Harold Ballard ran that team into the ground and they sucked. And every Saturday night, we got to see poor Peter Ing or Alan Bester stave like 800 shots because they couldn't play defense, despite getting good players. Like they had Ali Afraidy. Like I remember Gary Leeman, Vincent Danfus. Like they drafted, like they always drafted early because they were always bad and they never got better and they made stupid deals. I live an hour and a half away from Saskatoon, which is where Wendell Clark played. Wendell Clark is probably the top 3 or 4 best Toronto Maple Leafs ever, and they still traded him. He fought and bled for that team and whatever. And then there was a shift when Ballard left, right? And then you had, or they free agency, they were like a drunk uncle spending at the bar. It was insane, right? They would get all the older stars, the huge contracts, them and the New York Rangers, and that. And then after that, the salary cap came in. Probably, I would say, because of some of those deals, because it was insane. The Rangers had like $150 million salary cap, and like when they won the cup, right? Anyways, my point is, I will never cheer or say anything for the Toronto Maple Leafs because I don't think they can get out of the first round. I mean, let's look at the last 10 years. I remember when they had Montreal by the throat, 3-1, and they lost. The 2-on overtime break with Caulfield and Suzuki, I think, for me, was the nail in the coffin. They were done. Now you got to figure it's been a long time now, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. When do you develop the killer instinct after being in that environment for that long? Mitch Marner hit 100 points this year. I like Mitch Marner. I think he's not treated necessarily fairly there, but he's the weak one they view out of the big 4, right? They don't do it this year. It ain't happening. But I think Ottawa's got nothing to prove, and Ottawa's playing their big brother. So I'm going to say Ottawa in 6, just because I hate those fucking Leafs, and I hope they never win a game. All right. Now, I could be wrong there, but you got to take some dark horses. That's my dark horses. And I started to go, I don't know if it was Irish or Scottish, but bear with me. Okay, we're almost done here. Tampa Bay and Florida. I'm taking Florida. Tampa Bay isn't playing good, but man, Tampa Bay's got a great coach in Cooper. I think he's kind of a dick, but I really like the way he coaches. And I really like Paul Maurice. I think Paul Maurice is a very good coach and was well-deserving of the Stanley Cup win last year. And yeah, they put a lot of money into Florida, but they've had a lot of injuries. They've had some people suspended, that kind of stuff. And he still got them playing. They're still in the top 10. They're still in the top fucking 3. What am I saying? I go Florida in 7. It'll be 6 or 7. I think 7. I think when it comes down to clutch, Tampa Bay might have the edge in goaltending, but I think Florida's got the edge in everything else. Right? Tampa can score, so can Florida. I think their defense, I think the Jones trade was a good one. And I think once everyone's back, you're going to see how good that was. I say Florida in 7. Yeah. Now, here is my Vegas-Minnesota series for the East. All right, I'll watch it. Hurricanes in New Jersey. I don't find the Hurricanes overly entertaining to watch, but I respect the way Rod Brind'Amour coaches them. That's a hardworking team that'll fight you in the street, and I like that. They're just boring as hell to watch. And they made some really bizarre moves this year, which I don't understand. The Nikos, I understand swinging for the fences when they traded Nikas and the Colorado for, what the hell is that guy's name? I can't remember. But he wouldn't play there anyway. Now he's in Dallas, right? So, I mean, they made some weird moves. Then they got pieces back, but for the future. Stankoven, which is probably the best name ever. Captain Stankoven. Oh, that was just okay. Like, you can make that up. And then 2 first-round picks. They're going to get younger. They're going to get better. They're going to stock the cupboards, but it's not helping them now. And they got a team. I think there's just there's something preventing them from jumping up to that step to be like we're contenders here. So I think they're going to beat New Jersey. Yes, I do, but I don't think they're getting out of the second round. I think they beat New Jersey in 6, just because New Jersey got injured and they didn't have the depth to compensate, and they suffered. Right. Even though Jake Allen had a hell of a year this year, he's a good backup. He's a good goalie in general, right? If you need a guy to play 40 games, he's your man. I really like him. But man, Montreal did all right for themselves too. Look, I think it's a 3rd or 2nd round pick. Anyways, so we got Hurricanes in New Jersey. I got Hurricanes in 6. Okay, I already took my upsets, right? Which is what I'm saying. LA over Edmonton, I think is an upset. Ottawa over Toronto. Depends how you view it, but I think it's an upset. And now we got the Montreal Canadiens, who beat Carolina 4-2 to get the last playoff spot. 3rd year of a rebuild. They weren't expected to make the playoffs, but challenged for it. But they made it. So you could say they're maybe a little ahead of schedule in that regard, but I don't know. I think it just might have come together. Washington Capitals, mind you, have the all-time leading goal scorer with Alexander Ovechkin. Not to mention they won a Stanley Cup in the last 10 years. They're the number 1 or number 2 team in the NHL for the entire regular season. They crushed everybody. And Ovechkin missed like 17 games with an injury, and he still had like 42 goals. That's insane. And he's 39 years old, right? Realistically, I think Washington will probably win in 6. But I'm also thinking if there ever was an upset to be had, it'd be that one. Do I see Montreal winning? I don't. I believe they can win, but I don't know realistically if they will. But I think Caps will probably win in 6, or Montreal can win it in 7. Let's not forget, it was 2012 when the Capitals were 1st overall. They made the playoffs. Montreal snuck in on like the second last day as the 8th seed, came back from a 3-1 deficit and beat them in 7 games. Then they proceeded to do the same thing the next series against Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins to get to the conference final, which they lost when Krieger bulldozed Carey Price and fucked up his knee. That was it. And then it was Tortokoski or something. Yeah. If Price wouldn't have been hurt, I think it would have been a different story because he was lights out that whole playoffs. Right? No, that wasn't the one. Sorry, that was Halak. Price is later on. That was 2017. I'm sorry, I mixed up my variables. No, Halak played. He stood on his head, and then he stood his head in the second round. And then that summer, there was a big debate on who would you keep, Price or Halak. I think they made the right choice with Price because ultimately Price is the better goaltender. But Price is just he was drafted in 2005. That was 2012. Right. Anyways, that's it for history. I'm going to say Montreal in 7 just because you never say die, man. You never say die. Cobra Kai, never say die. So, Caps could win in 6, but I'm saying Montreal in 7. And that's my picks for the East. So, we got Winnipeg in 6. We got Colorado in 7. We got Vegas in 5. We got LA in 6. That could go 7, but I'm going to say 6. That's the West. Now, We got Ottawa in 6, Florida in 7, Hurricanes in 6, and I'm going to say Montreal in 7. All right, let's keep it alive. All right, everybody. Tell me what you think. If you think about the lunch, put it in the comments. Share, throw it in there. Tell me what you think. Why do you think I'm wrong? What do you think I'm right? What are your picks? Tell me your picks. I think that'd be good. Let's get the discussion going. I'm Corey Rennie, Unemployable Counsellor. I really appreciate you staying to the end and checking this out. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. Mwah! And we'll see you for round 2, and we'll see where I stand. All right. Take care, everybody.